As more Overlord ships fell, a sense of panic spread through their ranks. The Dreadnought was no longer just an object of ridicule. It was a force to be reckoned with. The tables had turned, and Ilara stood at the helm of the human revolution. In that moment, Ilara felt a rush of pride. This was her fight, and she would show the galaxy that humans were anything but weak. The battle raged on, and the Galactic Overlords found themselves in chaos, their confidence shattered as they faced the might of the human Dreadnought. With determination fueling her every decision, Ilara prepared for what was to come next. The fight had just begun, and she was ready to take on the challenge head-on. The battle for control. The Horizon's fury glided through the chaos of the battlefield, its weapons blazing with unrelenting fury. Ilara stood at the helm, eyes narrowed with focus as she guided the massive ship through the onslaught of incoming fire. Her crew was a well-oiled machine, each member performing their duties with precision, bolstered by the adrenaline of combat. "Target the next ship," Ilara commanded, her voice steady even amid the roar of explosions around them. "Fire at will." The Dreadnought responded with a loud thrum as its cannons powered up again. Bright beams of energy shot out, striking another Overlord vessel. The enemy ship erupted into a brilliant fireball, its remnants scattered across the vastness of space. The crew erupted in cheers, their confidence soaring. But Lord Sailor was not ready to surrender. He watched the devastation unfold from the command center of his flagship, his expression twisted with rage and disbelief. "They're stronger than we thought. Gather the remaining fleet. We must regroup and counterattack," he bellowed, his voice echoing off the metallic walls. His command stirred the remaining Overlords into action. They quickly adjusted their tactics, forming a tighter formation around the Horizon's fury. Sailor had always underestimated the humans, viewing them as little more than pests. Now, faced with the reality of their firepower, he was filled with desperation. Back on the Horizon's fury, Ilara could see the Overlord ships beginning to reorganize. "They're regrouping," she shouted to her crew. "Prepare for their next move. Keep an eye on the right flank. They may try to encircle us." The crew nodded, their expressions set with determination. They had come too far to back down now. Ilara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. She had always believed that humans could achieve greatness, and today she would prove it to the entire galaxy. As expected, the Overlords launched a coordinated attack. Ships surged forward, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts toward the Dreadnought. Ilara barked orders, and the crew worked feverishly to evade the incoming fire. "Shields up," she shouted. The energy barriers shimmered around the ship, absorbing the worst of the hits, but the force of the blasts rattled the crew, reminding them of the danger they faced. "Return fire," Ilara commanded, and the Horizon's fury responded with a volley of its own. The energy beams struck several Overlord ships, causing chaos in their ranks. The tides of battle were turning, and the Overlords were beginning to realize they had underestimated their opponent. On the Overlord flagship, Sailor slammed his fist down in frustration. "This is unacceptable. Engage their shields with concentrated fire. We cannot allow them to take another ship." His orders rang out, and the remaining Overlord vessels focused their attacks on the Dreadnought. The intensity of the assault increased, and Ilara felt the ship shudder under the pressure. "Hold steady," she urged her crew, who were all fighting to keep the ship under control. The battle was becoming more chaotic, and it was difficult to maintain focus. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Captain, the shields are weakening," one of the crew members called out, panic creeping into their voice. Ilara clenched her fists. "Divert power from non-essential systems to the shields. We can't let them breach our defenses." The crew worked frantically, rerouting energy and ensuring that the shields held strong. Ilara could see the Overlords closing in, their ships tightening the noose around her Dreadnought. It was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, and she refused to lose. "Prepare to engage their flagship," she commanded, her voice cutting through the noise. We can't let Salar escape. We have to show them that humanity will not be trifled with. With renewed energy, the crew focused on their task. The Horizon's fury turned, aiming for the flagship of the Overlords. The ship was enormous, dwarfing many of the smaller vessels, but Ilara had a plan. Lock on to their main weapon systems, she ordered. We need to disable their firepower before they can hit us again. As the Dreadnought locked onto the flagship, a tense silence fell over the bridge. Ilara felt the weight of her crew's hopes resting on her shoulders. She couldn't fail them now. Fire, Ilara commanded. The ship erupted with energy once more, and the beams struck true, hitting the flagship's weapon systems. Explosions erupted across the Overlord ship, and cheers filled the bridge of the Horizon's fury. Zeller's eyes widened in shock as he watched his flagship take damage. "No, this cannot be happening," he shouted, desperation lacing his voice. The Overlords were beginning to falter, their fear becoming evident. The tide of the battle was shifting, and Ilara knew they had to seize the moment. "Now is our chance," she shouted to her crew. "Push forward. Let's show them what humans can really do." With renewed fervor, the Horizon's fury surged forward, pressing the attack against the remaining Overlord vessels. They were no longer just fighting to defend, they were fighting for victory. As the battle raged on, Ilara felt a sense of purpose swelling within her. They were more than just a crew on a ship. They were humanity's champions, standing against the oppressive forces of the galaxy. And they would not back down. With every shot fired, the Overlord's confidence crumbled. The Horizon's fury pressed on, determined to fight until the last ship fell. The battle for control had only just begun, and Ilara was ready to lead her crew to triumph. A message to the galaxy. The battle continued to rage around the Horizon's fury, with beams of energy illuminating the dark void of space. Ilara stood firm at the helm, her heart pounding with adrenaline. They were in the thick of it now, and every decision she made could change the course of the fight. "Keep targeting their engines," Ilara shouted. "We need to disable as many ships as we can." The crew responded, laser-focused on their tasks, their resolve strengthening with each passing moment. As another Overlord vessel exploded in a flash of light, the tension in the air was palpable. The Dreadnought was holding its ground, but Ilara could see the Overlords beginning to regroup again. Lord Sailor was not one to give up easily, and she knew he would launch a counterattack soon. Suddenly, a voice crackled through the comms. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council," one of her crew shouted, surprise evident in their voice. Ilara furrowed her brow. The Galactic Council. What could they possibly want at a time like this? "Patch it through," Ilara ordered, intrigued. The screen flickered to life, revealing the faces of various alien leaders. Their expressions were a mix of confusion and fear. "Captain Ilara of the Horizon's Fury," one of the council members began, his voice shaky. "We have been monitoring your battle with the Overlords. This is unprecedented. You must cease hostilities at once." Ilara felt a surge of anger. "Cease hostilities. They attacked us first. They mocked us, thinking we were weak, and now they are suffering the consequences." Another council member interjected. "We understand, but you must consider the bigger picture. If you destroy the Overlords, it will spark a war across the galaxy. You cannot act recklessly." Ilara clenched her jaw, her frustration boiling over. "Recklessly? We are fighting for our survival. The Overlords want to dominate us, and I refuse to let that happen. We have the right to defend ourselves." The council members exchanged worried glances. "This will lead to dire consequences, Captain. The Overlords are powerful allies. If you defeat them, it will upset the balance of power in the galaxy," one warned. "Let them come," Ilara shot back, her voice steady. "We will not back down. This is our chance to show the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated." With that, she cut off the transmission, turning back to her crew. "Keep the pressure on. Let's finish what we started," she commanded. The crew erupted into cheers, their spirits lifted by Ilara's resolve. She could feel the weight of their hopes resting on her shoulders, and she would not let them down. The horizon's fury surged forward, energy cannons blazing. Ilara's determination ignited a fire within the crew, and they fought with renewed vigor. The remaining Overlord ships began to falter, and Ilara could see the fear in their eyes as they faced the relentless assault. "Target the flagship," she ordered. "We need to take out Salar's ship and end this battle once and for all." The crew nodded, focusing their fire on the massive Overlord vessel that had once seemed invincible. As beams of energy struck the flagship, explosions rippled across its hull. Ilara felt a rush of satisfaction. They were turning the tide, proving their strength against the oppressive forces of the galaxy. But just as victory seemed within reach, the remaining Overlord ships began to retreat. "They're pulling back," one of the crew shouted, surprise etched on their face. Ilara narrowed her eyes, sensing something was off. "Don't let them escape. They need to understand that we will not be bullied." She urged her crew to keep firing, refusing to let the Overlords slip away. Suddenly, a transmission came through from Salar himself. His face appeared on the screen, a mixture of anger and desperation in his eyes. "You may think you have won, human, but this is not over. The Overlords will not forget this humiliation," he sneered. Ilara met his gaze with unwavering confidence. "And we will not forget your tyranny. You will face the consequences of your actions." With that, she severed the connection, her heart racing with adrenaline. The Overlord flagship began to drift, its engines damaged beyond repair. Ilara felt a sense of triumph wash over her. They had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of, and she was proud of her crew. But deep down, a sense of foreboding lingered. She knew that Salar's threats were not empty. The Overlords would regroup, and the galaxy would feel the repercussions of their victory. As the last of the Overlord ships retreated, the crew of the Horizon's Fury erupted into cheers. They had fought bravely, defying the odds and standing tall against a powerful enemy. Ilara joined in their celebration, but her mind remained sharp, aware of the challenges ahead. "Prepare a message to the Galactic Council," Ilara instructed her crew. "We need to inform them of our victory and make it clear that humanity will not be subjugated." As they drafted the message, Ilara felt a sense of purpose. This was not just a victory for her crew. It was a message to the galaxy. Humanity was ready to rise, to stand against those who sought to oppress them. The Horizon's Fury had become a symbol of strength and resilience, and Ilara was determined to ensure that their story would echo throughout the stars. The battle was won, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning. The aftermath of battle. The Horizon's Fury drifted silently in the cold void of space, its hull scared but intact. The recent battle with the Overlords had left both the ship and its crew exhausted. Ilara stood on the bridge, gazing at the stars beyond the viewport. They had won a hard-fought victory, but she knew it came at a cost. "Status report," Ilara called out, breaking the silence that had settled over the crew. The first officer, a tall and sturdy man named Commander Jake, turned to her, his expression serious. "We lost several systems during the fight, but we managed to patch most of them up. The crew is tired, but morale is high," he replied. "We're still operational and ready for whatever comes next." Ilara nodded, appreciating his steadiness. "Good. Let's not waste this momentum. Prepare a message to send to the Galactic Council. We need to inform them of our victory and ask for their support moving forward." "Understood, Captain," Jake said, his eyes lighting up with the prospect of their newfound importance. "I'll have it ready in no time." As Jake worked on the message, Ilara's mind wandered to the aftermath of the battle. The Galactic Council had warned them about the repercussions of their actions, and she knew they would not take the defeat of the Overlords lightly. It was only a matter of time before the galaxy's leaders weighed in on the events that had unfolded. Just then, the communications officer, a young woman named Aisha, called out, "Captain, "We're receiving a transmission from the Council." Ilara's heart raced. "Put it through," she ordered, her eyes focused on the screen. The faces of the Galactic Council members appeared, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. "Captain Ilara," the lead member began, his tone serious. "We've been informed of your recent victory against the Overlords. This has sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy." "Good. The galaxy needs to see that humanity will not be intimidated," Ilara replied confidently. "While we acknowledge your strength, you must understand the gravity of this situation. The Overlords are a powerful faction. They will not sit idly by after such a defeat," the council member warned. "Their retaliation could lead to conflict across multiple systems." "I'm aware of the risks," Ilara said, her tone unwavering. "But we have proven ourselves. We won't allow them to bully us or anyone else." The council members exchanged worried glances. "We urge you to consider a diplomatic approach. It may be the only way to avoid an all-out war," another member suggested. Ilara felt a pang of frustration. "Diplomacy won't work with bullies. The Overlords only understand strength. We need to show them we are not weak." "Your defiance is admirable, but it could lead to a catastrophe," the lead member warned. "We will support you, but we advise caution." Ilara nodded, knowing they were right. Yet deep down, she felt that humanity's fight for respect and equality would require bold moves. "We'll proceed carefully but firmly. Thank you for your counsel." As the transmission ended, Ilara turned to her crew. "Prepare for potential retaliation from the Overlords. We need to be ready for anything." The crew nodded, a renewed sense of determination settling over them. They had stood against the Overlords once. They could do it again. Days passed, and the horizon's fury maintained a vigilant watch on the surrounding space. Ilara kept the crew busy with drills and training exercises. The ship buzzed with activity as they prepared for the worst. Ilara wanted everyone to be ready for a possible counterattack. Meanwhile, she took time to reflect on the recent events. The initial thrill of victory had faded, replaced by a heavy weight of responsibility. Ilara felt the pressure of leadership pressing down on her shoulders. It was not just about them anymore. It was about every human who might face oppression in the galaxy. One evening, as Ilara reviewed strategy plans in her quarters, a soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Jake, looking more serious than usual. "Captain, you might want to see this," he said, handing her a datapad. She took the pad, her heart racing as she read the latest intelligence report. "The Overlords are mobilizing a fleet," she said, her voice low. "They're planning to come after us." "We suspected they would," Jake replied, crossing his arms. "But they are gathering a force far larger than we anticipated." Ilara's mind raced. "How long do we have?" "Less than a week," he said, his tone grim. "They're using the destruction of their ships to rally support from other factions. This could turn into a galaxy-wide conflict." Ilara felt her resolve harden. "Then we'll make our stand. We won't let them intimidate us. If they want war, we'll show them what humanity is capable of." Jake nodded, admiration in his eyes. "I'll rally the crew and prepare our defenses." As he left, Ilara knew they were at a turning point. The horizon's fury was no longer just a ship. It was a beacon of hope for humanity. They had made their mark, and now they had to defend it. She steeled herself for the challenges ahead, determined to lead her crew into whatever came next. The next few days were a blur of preparations and planning. Ilara and her crew worked tirelessly, fortifying the ship and strategizing their approach. With every passing moment, the tension grew, but so did their unity. They were no longer just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for the entire human race. Ilara stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Overlords may have underestimated them once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. She would ensure that humanity's spirit would shine brightly in the darkness of the galaxy. The gathering storm. The days turned into a flurry of activity aboard the horizon's fury. Ilara and her crew knew that time was running out. The Overlords were amassing a significant force, and it was only a matter of time before they would strike. The mood on the ship was a mix of determination and apprehension, but Ilara saw the spark of resolve in everyone's eyes. They were ready to fight for their future. On the morning of the 5th day, Ilara gathered the crew in the main hangar. The air was thick with tension as they prepared for the coming battle. The sleek, silver fighters stood lined up, ready to be launched at a moment's notice. She could feel the anticipation in the room, and she knew she had to inspire them. "Listen up, everyone." Ilara's voice rang out, firm and steady. "We've faced overwhelming odds before, and we came out stronger. Now, the Overlords think they can intimidate us. But we know the truth. They underestimated us once, and they will do so again." The crew exchanged glances, their spirits lifted by her words. Ilara continued, "Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every human in the galaxy. We will show them that humanity stands united and unyielding. Together, we will defend what is ours." A cheer erupted from the crew, filling the hangar with energy. Ilara felt her heart swell with pride. They were ready to face whatever the Overlords would throw at them. "Prepare the fighters and get the shields online," she ordered. "Jake, coordinate with the engineering team to ensure the Horizon's Fury is at peak performance." "Aye, Captain," Jake replied, his enthusiasm evident. As the crew sprang into action, Ilara took a moment to watch them. She felt a deep sense of responsibility for each one of them. They had become her family, and she would do everything in her power to protect them. Hours later, the ship was fully operational, and the crew was primed for battle. The tension in the air was palpable as they waited for the Overlords to make their move. Ilara paced the bridge, her mind racing with strategy and possibilities. She was determined not to repeat past mistakes. They had to be smarter this time. Suddenly, the sensors beeped, interrupting her thoughts. "Captain." Incoming ships detected on the scanners. Aisha called out, her voice tense. Ilara rushed to the control panel, her heart pounding. "How many?" "Scans indicate a fleet of at least 20 Overlord ships," Aisha reported. "They're advancing quickly." Ilara's resolve strengthened. "All hands, battle stations," she commanded, her voice unwavering. "Prepare to engage." The crew moved swiftly, each person taking their position with confidence. Ilara could feel the adrenaline surging through her veins. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. "Activate shields and prepare weapons," she ordered. "We will not back down." As the Horizon's Fury powered up, Ilara glanced at Jake. "Let's show them what humanity can do," she said, determination shining in her eyes. "Yes, Captain," he replied, a fierce smile spreading across his face. The Overlord fleet came into view, their dark ships looming ominously against the stars. Ilara felt her heart race, but she pushed aside her fear. She had trained for this. She had led her crew through countless drills. They could do this. "On my mark," Ilara instructed, her voice calm but firm. She watched as the Overlord ships drew closer, their weapons charging. The tension on the bridge was electric. 3, 2, 1, mark," Ilara shouted. "Fire." The bridge erupted with the sound of weapons firing, as the Horizon's Fury unleashed its arsenal on the approaching fleet. Bright beams of energy shot through space, illuminating the darkness. Ilara's heart swelled with pride as she watched her crew in action. The Overlords responded quickly, returning fire as their ships charged forward. Explosions lit up the void of space, a chaotic dance of destruction. Ilara maneuvered the Horizon's Fury with precision, dodging incoming fire while keeping their weapons trained on the enemy. "Take out their lead ship," she commanded. Jake relayed the orders, and the crew focused their fire on the lead Overlord ship. Ilara felt the ship shudder as they took hits, but she pressed on, determined to maintain the offensive. Shield holding at 70%, Aisha reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We can take more hits. Keep firing." Ilara yelled, "We can't let up now." As they fought, Ilara noticed a shift in the battle. The overlords were struggling to regroup. Their formation was breaking apart under the relentless assault of the horizon's fury. Ilara seized the opportunity. "Jake, prepare the fighters for a flanking maneuver. We're going in," she commanded, her voice filled with fierce determination. "Aye, Captain," Jake replied, grinning. The fighter pilots launched from the hangar, zipping into the fray with precision. Ilara guided the horizon's fury toward the heart of the enemy fleet, her heart racing with excitement. They were making an impact. The battle raged on, and Ilara felt a sense of unity and strength among her crew. They fought as one, driven by a common purpose. The overlords were powerful, but they were not invincible. With every passing moment, Ilara knew they were pushing the overlords back. Their confidence was faltering. This was a turning point. "Keep up the pressure," Ilara shouted, her voice echoing in the control room. "We're fighting for our future." As the battle continued, Ilara felt a deep sense of pride in her crew. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the very essence of humanity. They were proving to the galaxy that they would not be silenced. And in that moment, amidst the chaos of war, Ilara knew that they would emerge victorious. The horizon's fury was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's strength and resilience. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and they would do it together. The turning tide. The battle raged on, and the vastness of space echoed with the sounds of destruction. Explosions lit up the dark void as the horizon's fury and its crew faced the formidable fleet of the overlords. Ilara's heart raced as she took in the scene, her fighters darting through enemy fire, the ship's weapons blazing, and the overlord ships beginning to falter under their relentless assault. "Captain, we've destroyed 3 enemy ships," Jake reported, his excitement evident. "Their formation is breaking apart." "Good," Ilara replied, her determination growing. "Keep the pressure on. We can't let them regroup." As the crew pressed forward, Ilara noticed something unusual in the enemy formation. The overlords seemed to be focusing their fire on the horizon's fury. It was clear they recognized the threat her ship posed. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "We need to avoid their concentrated fire." The ship shuddered as it weaved and dodged, the crew working in perfect harmony. Ilara felt a surge of pride as she watched them operate as a well-oiled machine. They were no longer just a crew. They had become a family, united by their purpose. "Captain, we have incoming missiles," Aisha called out, her voice steady but urgent. "Divert power to shields," Ilara commanded. "Brace for impact." The ship trembled as the missiles struck, but the shields held firm. "Shields at 50%, Aisha reported, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We can take it," Ilara shouted, her voice unwavering. "Let's show them what we're made of." As they fought, Ilara could see the overlord's confidence wavering. The tides were beginning to turn, and she could feel the momentum shifting in their favor, but she knew they couldn't let up now. The overlords were still a formidable enemy, and they needed to strike while they had the advantage. "Jake, signal the fighters to converge on the nearest overlord ship," Ilara ordered. "We'll take them out one by one." "On it, Captain," Jake replied, relaying the orders to the fighter pilots. The fighters regrouped, diving into the heart of the enemy formation. Ilara watched with anticipation as they launched their missiles, targeting the nearest overlord ship. The bright explosions were a sight to behold, and Ilara felt a rush of exhilaration. They were making a difference. Suddenly, alarms blared on the bridge. "Captain, we've got a massive ship closing in from the rear," Aisha warned, her eyes wide with alarm. Ilara turned to the screen, her heart sinking. A colossal overlord dreadnought had appeared, its dark silhouette casting a shadow over the battlefield. The dreadnought's weapons were charging, ready to unleash devastation. Redirect power to aft shields. Ilara shouted, her mind racing. We need to protect our rear flank. The crew moved quickly, their hands flying over the controls. Ilara's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the massive ship draw closer. This was a serious threat, and they needed to act fast. Engage evasive maneuvers, Ilara commanded. Jake, prepare a counterattack. We can't let them hit us. The Horizon's Fury spun and rolled, narrowly dodging the first volley of fire from the Dreadnought. The ship shook violently, but Ilara held her ground, determined to lead her crew through this challenge. Fighters, target the Dreadnought's weapons. Jake called out, rallying the pilots. We need to take out those guns. The fighters launched into action, darting toward the massive ship. Ilara watched as they weaved through enemy fire, focusing their attacks on the Dreadnought's weapon systems. Keep firing, Ilara urged, her voice steady. We can do this. The fighters unleashed a barrage of missiles, striking the Dreadnought with precision. The explosions rocked the massive ship, and Ilara felt a sense of hope rising within her. They were making an impact. Captain, we've taken out 2 of the Dreadnought's turrets, Aisha announced, her excitement palpable. Good. Keep it up, Ilara encouraged, her heart racing. We need to weaken it further. But just as they were gaining momentum, the Dreadnought retaliated. Its remaining weapons fired in unison, targeting the Horizon's Fury with deadly accuracy. Brace for impact, Ilara shouted, her heart pounding. The ship shook violently as the blast struck their shields, but the crew held steady. Shields at 30%. Aisha called out, her voice tense. Prepare to counterattack, Ilara commanded, her determination unyielding. We won't back down. With renewed resolve, Ilara focused on the enemy Dreadnought. Jake, coordinate with the fighters. We'll hit it with everything we've got. As the crew rallied, the Horizon's Fury surged forward. Ilara could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as they charged at the Dreadnought. This was their moment to shine. Fire all weapons, Ilara shouted, her voice fierce. The ship erupted with energy as they unleashed a barrage of firepower. The Dreadnought was taken by surprise, its shields failing under the relentless assault. Keep it coming, Ilara urged, watching as the massive ship began to crumble under their onslaught. In that moment, Ilara felt a surge of hope. They could win this battle. They could prove to the galaxy that humanity would not be defeated. As the Dreadnought's defenses faltered, Ilara knew they were on the brink of victory. Let's finish this, she called, her heart racing with excitement. The crew responded with enthusiasm, their determination shining through. Together, they would fight, and together, they would prevail. The tide of battle was turning, and the fate of humanity lay in their hands. The victory. The Horizon's Fury surged forward, powered by the collective resolve of its crew. Ilara stood at the helm, her eyes locked onto the massive Overlord Dreadnought. They had fought hard to get to this moment, and she could sense victory within reach. Captain, we've breached the Dreadnought's outer hull, Jake shouted, his voice filled with exhilaration. Its shields are down. Good work, everyone, Ilara replied, a smile breaking across her face. Now let's finish what we started. With the Dreadnought's defenses compromised, Ilara called out her next orders. Target the main reactor. If we take that out, we can cripple their entire fleet. The crew moved with purpose, each member knowing their role. Aisha monitored the systems, ensuring everything was ready for the final strike, while Jake coordinated the fighter pilots, guiding them toward their target. Fighters, aim for the reactor. We need a clean shot, Jake relayed, urgency lacing his voice. The fighter pilots soared through the chaos of the battlefield, weaving between explosions and enemy fire. Ilara could see their determination reflected in their movements. They were fighting not just for victory, but for each other. Prepare for missile launch, Aisha called, her hands flying over the controls. We're ready to fire. Do it, Ilara shouted, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The ship erupted with light as missiles shot forth, streaking toward the Dreadnought's reactor. Ilara held her breath, her heart racing. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The missiles struck with devastating force, and the Dreadnought shook violently. The massive ship groaned as it struggled to remain intact, but it was too late. The reactor had taken a direct hit, and Ilara watched in awe as the Dreadnought began to crumble. "Captain, it's going critical," Aisha warned, her eyes wide with urgency. "Get us out of here," Ilara ordered, her voice steady. "All crew, prepare for evasive maneuvers." The Horizon's Fury pulled back just in time as the Dreadnought exploded in a brilliant display of light and energy. The shockwave rippled through space, and Ilara felt the ship tremble under the force. "Report," Ilara demanded, her heart pounding. "Shields holding at 70%, Aisha replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. "But we're clear of the blast radius." Ilara exhaled a sigh of relief. "Good work, everyone. We did it." Cheers erupted on the bridge, the crew celebrating their hard-fought victory. Ilara couldn't help but join in, her heart swelling with pride for her team. They had faced overwhelming odds, and together they had emerged victorious. But their triumph was short-lived. As the crew celebrated, a new alarm blared, cutting through the excitement. "Captain, more enemy ships are warping in," Jake shouted, his expression turning serious. Ilara's heart sank. "How many?" "Several dreadnoughts and cruisers," Jake replied, his voice tense. "They're angry, and they're coming fast. Prepare for battle," Ilara commanded, her voice sharp and focused. "We can't let them catch us off guard. All hands to battle stations." The crew sprang into action, adrenaline replacing the celebration as they readied themselves for the next fight. Ilara took a deep breath, steadying her resolve. They had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. As the new enemy ships entered the fray, Ilara gathered her thoughts. "We've proven ourselves today," she said, looking at her crew. "We've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of. We can do this again." "Ready to engage, Captain," Jake reported, determination shining in his eyes. "Let's show them our strength," Ilara shouted, her spirit ignited. "All weapons target the nearest enemy ship." The Horizon's Fury surged forward once more, its crew working in perfect unison. Ilara felt the power of her ship beneath her, and she knew they would face whatever came next together. As the ship entered the fray, Ilara was struck by a thought. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a future where humanity could stand proud among the stars, where they could carve out their place in the galaxy. "Let's make them remember this day," Ilara declared, her voice unwavering. "Today, we are not just survivors, we are warriors." With renewed determination, the crew of the Horizon's Fury engaged the enemy fleet. The battle ahead would be fierce, but they would face it together, united in their cause. As the lights of the ship flashed and the sounds of battle filled the air, Ilara felt a sense of belonging. They were more than just a crew, they were family, and together, they would forge a legacy that would resonate through the stars.